Hello, and welcome back to Elise Explains IP, the podcast where we break down intellectual property in a way that actually makes sense for business owners. I'm Elise, and in today's episode, we're talking about slogans and taglines. Those short phrases businesses use to communicate what they stand for. Things like Nike's "Just Do It," McDonald's "I'm loving it," L'Oreal's "Because you're worth it." These phrases are powerful branding tools. But a question I'm asked surprisingly often is, can you protect a slogan as a trademark? And the answer is, as it usually is in law, sometimes yes, but not always. Today we're going to unpack when slogans can be protected, why many applications fail, what makes a slogan legally distinctive, and some practical tips if you want to protect your own tagline. So let's get into it. A slogan often becomes the most memorable part of a brand. Think about it for a moment. You might not immediately recall a company's logo, but you probably remember its tagline. For example, "Finger lickin' good," "Have a break," "Have a Kit Kat." "Red Bull gives you wings." These phrases work because they embed themselves into consumer memory and into pop culture often. From a legal perspective, that's exactly what a trademark is designed to do. Trademarks identify the commercial source of goods or services. So, if consumers see a phrase and immediately think of a particular brand, it can potentially function as a trademark. But there's a catch. Not every slogan qualifies. Under Australian trademark law, as we've discussed, the core question is whether a phrase is distinctive. In simple terms, does the phrase identify your business, or is it just advertising language? And this is where many slogan applications run into trouble, because a lot of taglines are really just fluffy marketing statements. Things like "quality you can trust," or "the best choice," "simply better." These phrases are just describe something positive about the product, but they don't necessarily identify who the product comes from. And the law generally doesn't allow one business to monopolise common promotional language. Trademark officers often refer to these statements as laudatory phrases, meaning a phrase that simply praise the product. So now let's look at some slogans that do function as trademarks. Nike's "Just Do It." This phrase is interesting because it's not descriptive of sportwear. It doesn't say anything about sport. It's motivational. It doesn't describe the product. It evokes a feeling. And that makes it easier to protect. L'Oreal's "Because you're worth it." Again, this is emotion-driven branding, not a description of cosmetics. Consumers associate the phrase strongly with L'Oreal's advertising and the way their products are designed to make them feel. Over the time, it has clearly developed distinctiveness. And McDonald's "I'm loving it." This phrase also works well as a trademark, because it functions almost like a signature line for the brand. It's not describing burgers, it doesn't make reference to food, it's reinforcing a brand identity. On the other hand, many slogans fail because they are too descriptive. Trademark officers regularly reject phrases like "fresh taste" or "best quality," "simply delicious," because other businesses in the same industry may need to use similar language. Trademark law tries to prevent one company from locking up everyday marketing phrases. This principle exists in most jurisdictions around the world. Even if a slogan is somewhat descriptive, it may still be registrable if it has acquired distinctiveness through use. In Australia, this means consumers have come to now identify and recognise the phrase as indicating a particular brand. Businesses sometimes prove this by using advertising spend, sales figures, marketing surveys, long-term use of a phrase. Essentially, the argument becomes consumers now see this phrase and think of us. But building that evidence can take years of consistent branding, so it's not always an easy path. Another challenge with slogans is how they're actually used in the marketplace. A phrase might appear in advertising, but not necessarily as a trademark. For example, imagine a company running an ad that says "experience the difference." If the phrase appears once in a campaign and then disappears, it's probably just advertising copy. But if the phrase appears on packaging, on signage, repeatedly over time across multiple campaigns, consistently alongside the brand name, then it may start to function more like a trademark. Consistency is key. So, what are some practical tips for businesses? If you're developing a slogan and hoping to protect it, there are a few things worth keeping in mind. Number 1, avoid descriptive phrases. The safest slogans are not directly about the product. They tend to be suggestive, emotional, and memorable. For example, Just Do It works because it's open-ended and imaginative. Number 2, keep it unique. Before investing heavily in a slogan, it's worth checking whether other businesses are already using something similar. This means, as we've talked about before, conducting trademark searches, internet searches, and market checks. A slogan that seems obvious to you may already be in widespread use. Number 3, use it consistently. If you want a slogan to become a protectable trademark, you need to treat it like one. That means using it regularly, using it consistently, linking it clearly with your brand. Over time, consumers start to associate the phrase with your business, and that's exactly what the law is looking for. Number 4, considering registering early. If your slogan is distinctive from the outset, it may be possible to register it straight away. Obviously, registering a slogan as a trademark can give you exclusive rights to use it for certain goods and services, the ability to stop competitors copying it, and a stronger brand asset. But the success of registration will depend heavily on how distinctive the phrase is. Interestingly, some companies intentionally design slogans to be trademarkable from the start. Instead of choosing a descriptive tagline, they create something more unique. For example, phrases that are unexpected, slightly unusual, emotionally driven, are often easier to protect, and over time, they can become some of the most valuable parts of a brand. So, if we take a step back, the main points to remember are: slogan can be protected as a trademark, but it must function as a brand identifier and not just advertising language. The strongest slogans, like the strongest trademarks, are distinctive, memorable, not directly descriptive of the product, and consistently used over time, which can help the phrase or the slogan develop the distinctiveness needed for protection. And that's all for today's episode of Elise Explains IP. If you found this episode helpful, feel free to share the podcast with someone building a brand or launching a business, because slogans and taglines are often created very early, but the legal implications are rarely considered at the time. And, as always, remember, good branding is creative, but great branding is also protectable. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Elise Explains IP. Thanks for spending time with me on Elise Explains IP. If you picked up something useful, hit follow, subscribe, leave us a review, or send it to a founder friend who could use this information. And remember, this is general information, not legal advice. If you do want help with your IP, you can book a strategy call with me at any time via my website. The link's in the description. So until next time, own your own ideas.